JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Had a great weekend. April 29, 2024. Quick morning rant. Big week for markets. Every week's a big week, I guess, but it's Fed week. We have earnings. Apple, Amazon leading the show. We have the jobs report at the end of the week. JOLTS report on Wednesday. Consumer confidence on Tuesday. So it should be fun here. Take a look at last week at the SPY. Well, the S&P up over 2%. NASDAQ up nearly 3%. Strong rally at the end of the week as well. So I think that all bodes well, and that's despite the weaker than expected GDP number, which again, you would, in my opinion, you would think that bad news is kind of good news. It kind of allows the Fed to loosen the reins a little bit. So the big thing about Wednesday, we have Fed Chair Powell. He's going to have to walk that tightrope between saying we have to keep rates until we see inflation start to come down. We got to keep them at this current level, but then leave open the opportunity for possible cuts towards the end of the year. If he does that, I think markets will be fine. Amazon's after close tomorrow. On the heels of Microsoft and Google, you have to think there's strong reports, especially in the cloud space. Amazon's big driver for their margins is cloud, so want to see that. And then Apple, and if you look at Apple, it's almost like the negativity, similar to Tesla, right? Tesla's up another 7, 8, 9% this morning on China news. It was up after its earnings despite a miss. It was like peak negativity in the name. And I'm not saying it's peak negativity in Apple, but it's hard to think what they can announce that would not be, uh, that could be construed even more negative, right? So that might be an opportunity. That's just not a name I trade too much. So some good signs here. We'll see if we can get over the 50-day moving average on the SPY is 510.40. So maybe we get that today. That'd be constructive. Into tomorrow, we chop around, maybe back over 512.50 finally. And then I think we just melt higher. It seemed like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, it was the end of the market. We were going to crash, big bear market. All the bears pounding their chests. And sure enough, what does the market do? It reverses. 50-day moving average for the S&P up to 45%. We got a nice little move today, maybe back over 50%. I think that bode well as well. So that's the markets. So hopefully some chop here, no crazy catalyst, no geopolitical tensions. That kind of has been put to the wayside, and I think we can now focus on earnings and then Fed on Wednesday. So that should be good, at least overall. I think for uptrend for the market. Some names I'm looking at, VKTX I talked about on Friday can finally see two candles. You haven't been able to see candles since mid-April. And I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight days to the upside. One of these weekends there'll be some M&A. I'm trying to write a quick piece on VKTX because again, the valuation of the sum of its parts, it just doesn't. It's like mind-boggling to me. And then the valuation of competitors like NVO and LLY. I guess there's a price to be paid or a premium for being first to market, but VKTX is close, and this market's not going away. If anything, it's getting larger, and it's going to be even larger when they eventually do get a drug to market. So I think regardless of M&A, it's going to trade up near $100 sometime, hopefully in May. Still have the June strikes. I'll just hold those for now. So that's VKTX. RILY. So I wasn't really going to talk much about RILY. I said I'm going to wash my hands of it. I locked in the last of my calls on Friday for some nice gains. But then I'm looking this morning and I'm trying to, of course, I have trupanion calls, but I'm just trying to look because there was a lot of option action on RILY calls. And you look and there's like, I mean, I'm going to do the math because it's just going to take me a couple minutes of doing some copy and pasting. I just don't have the time pre-market, but sometime during the market, I'll be able to get the entire notional value for the call and the put side for RILY. And the notional value just means how much value is associated with what's tied up in the option market. So, for example, if there's 100 of the $10 calls at $1, that's let me give a bit better example. I'm trying to find RILY. Well, one of the open interest there's RILY. I think it's like the $15 calls. There's $1,000 open interest. The calls are going for 1660. Maybe it's the 20s. So it's $1.8 million in value of those options being tied up. So that's the notional value. If they called the contracts, if they exercise their calls and were given shares, they would have to have that much money to acquire those shares. So it doesn't mean it's not the same thing as actually owning the stock, but that's the notional value. I think that's a big deal because I think some of these shenanigans that's going on with them is folks are selling to open some of the calls to either finance shorts or to buy low, way out of the money puts to be able to keep shares short and not hit the negative the red reg short list. So, and just pure speculation. But I think the longer this goes on, if the stock still trades up in the 37, 40, 45 range, the higher the probability that it overshoots. So that's kind of my thought process there. I'll have more on that later. Don't want to really beat a dead horse on RILY. Trupanion reports, I believe it's Thursday morning. I ideally want to get out of my 2750s, hopefully for a decent profit, and just roll them into some further out of the money, inexpensive strikes, just in case it stays flat. I don't want to see a premium crush. At the same token, if there is a decent report and maybe a little bit of rosy guidance and starts to spike those out of the money strikes, will pay a lot more percentage wise than holding in the money. So I prefer to have less risk on than and still take advantage of the reward. Where if there is a miss and it does fall off, there's a lot of negative people posting negative stuff over the weekend. I guess Trupanion rescheduled their shareholder event, which typically I guess happens in the spring, is now in the fall, and I guess that's a bearish thing. Meanwhile, they have an analyst day, so and the analyst day is in a couple weeks or a couple months. So hey, to me, you want to hear as much about it in a company over a course of a year as opposed to having it all once one month or a couple months or one quarter. But it's construed bearish because if you're looking through it, uh, if you're bearish, of course, it's skewed negative. So anyway, so that's Trupanion. I think 27 or so. That you take a look at a 50-day moving average, 25.85. I'd love to see it over 25 today. Wishful thinking, maybe, but or hopeful thinking. A couple other names report earnings. PayPal reports before the open tomorrow. I was talking about this on the rant. If this is changing from a growth story to a value story, is probably not the best trade to take on. So I might just pass and wait to earnings tomorrow morning. It was up almost 3% on Friday. I think if it could post a nice beat and raise, it's into the mid 70s. I don't think the PayPal story is over by any means. That's PayPal Square reports also. They report Thursday after the close. I think it's an 11% implied move. Again, I was talking about last week, traded up to nearly 85 after last earnings at the end of February, and it's chopped around. Now it's down here at 70, 75. So I think it's a great opportunity. Well, I wouldn't say a great opportunity, but I think there's a nice risk reward there. So I probably would look to get calls there tomorrow, get some premium builds before they report Thursday after the close, so I have an opportunity to lock some in to cover costs. Yeah, WW reports too. You know my thoughts there. I think they need one quarter or two quarters back to back. If they show any promise, the thing's going to take off. So I'm not sure I'm going to dabble. I've been dabbling too much in WW, so I'll just wait and see on that one before adding any more. Cardytics, they'll report next week. I think it's May 8th. Still looking to get possibly some June strikes. I'll probably get them today. Great day on Friday. Finally up to what 6%. Held the 50-day like a champ. The 1125 area was the 50-day moving average. So I think it held that, bodes well. They'll report a phenomenal quarter. It's just a matter of how they spin their debt raises, which I think was the big issue. Diluting shareholders, kind of surprised, they diluted them once and then the stock spiked, they diluted them again. So it's like, why would you do that and not just do it all at once? So I think they'll have to explain that if they can kind of clear the air. I think it bodes well for upside there. CAVA up nearly 11% on Friday and no news. And I think it was a lot of sympathy move with CMG. People call it the mini CMG. Love to see that over 70 today and then be able to lock some of my strikes in and ride the rest. I think get up to 75 or so in the coming week or two. And then last but not least, here is AI. If anybody watched 60 Minutes, they had NVIDIA's CEO on. It was a nice little clip if you watch it. Not saying it's going to bode well for all AI names today, but I think AI continues to head higher. Nice little bottom it's forming. Let's see here. Do I have it up? No, I don't. Nice little bottom it's formed over the last couple sessions. And then, I keep talking about it. Its earnings back in February. It rallied over 30% to $38 and then just gave it all back and trading down here in the low 20s. I don't think it's going to take much for it to trade back up into the 30s. So I already have the May strikes. I'll look to get some Junes just to encompass that. Huge news overnight. Big news. Musk went over to China, work out his FSD, and then worked out a deal with Baidu for AI. And I keep looking at Baidu and Baba, and they finally, China markets were actually semi-green this morning. Oh, well, overnight, excuse me. And then you look at those names, it's like they've bounced around and they just can't break out. It's like Baidu, every time it hits around 106, it just reverses. So one of these times they'll break out. I don't know if it's right now, but definitely a name to watch this week, especially, I think it should be trading higher regardless of the deal with Tesla. And I think that just adds more credibility to their AI. And I think, at some point Baidu was the leader of search in China, and that was a big part of their growth. So now maybe they're able to finally flip the switch, and AI is going to be the next leg of their growth, which I guess it's yet to be seen. But stock price certainly doesn't reflect it. So if that is the case, eventually the stock will start to reflect it. It'll take off. So keeping my eyes on Baidu. That's it. That's my rant. This will be up on the on the blog in a couple minutes. Let's have a great week. Rock and roll.